Let's call the meeting to order. It's 5:30, and we are at the City Hall. And the computer screen isn't high enough for me to read the very top of it. There we go. Now I am oriented. It's April 9, 2018, 5:30, and we're at 10 West State Street in the council chambers. We always give a notice to the public. Let me truncate it this time. Keep your remarks short to 3 minutes. Identify yourself and your address if you would. It's up to us to decide whether we respond to specific questions or comments or have staff respond during the meeting. Those who are able, would you please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you and welcome. Let's do the roll call, please, Madam Clerk.
Lamer.
Here.
Martin.
Here.
Weirin.
Here.
Cahill.
Here.
Gowdy.
Here.
Hoop.
Here.
Isom.
Here.
Good. We have a full set of counselors today. Under Mayor, Council, and Administrator comments, there are two things we'd like to recognize first, and then I'll ask if there are any comments from the counselors or from our city administrator. Bethany Weirin is our Mayor Pro Tem, and I believe she has a professional connection with Brianna Hargrave. So I've asked her to introduce our first topic of the day.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So some of you may not know I'm the director of Marshalltown Christian School. And one of our students, one of our classes, I should back up, last fall, Diane Blagg, who teaches some language arts classes for us, decided to take her classes, 6th through 8th graders, through the process of the If I Were Mayor contest, which is a statewide contest put on by the Iowa League of Cities. And so that she did that for all the kids, but only the 7th grade class was eligible to actually enter the contest. And we have a winner. She's one of the district winners. There are 4 districts. There were 900 plus essays written. And so one of our students won it for our district, and she's here tonight to read her essay to us. It's pretty brief. Is there anything else I should add, Brianna? Okay, so come on up. This is Brianna Hargrave.
As I understand it, she might also be related to a former mayor of the town.
She is. So you can see up on the screen, that is former Mayor Howard Stegman and his wife, and Brianna's little sister. And so thanks for providing that photo. And so take it away, Brianna.
If I Were Mayor by Brianna Hargrave. If I were mayor, I would want to accomplish as many good things as my great-grandpa achieved. My great-grandpa, Mayor Howard Stegman, was elected and served 8 years as mayor of Marshalltown. So I sat down and interviewed him about what it was like to be mayor. He told me he was a concerned citizen and had a plan for our city to build new roads, bridges, and make travel flow smoothly through town. I want to serve and make our city better too. If I were mayor, I would work to bring new businesses to Marshalltown. New businesses would bring more jobs to more people and more money for our city. I would first begin with a huge empty building on Center Street that used to be Big Store Kmart. I would speak to the representatives who made the decisions for TJ Maxx, and I would represent Marshalltown to them. I would tell them of our great city and ask them to open a store here. I would tell them Marshalltown is a family-friendly place to live and shop, and we try to keep the taxes low for businesses. My great-grandpa said that the mayor serves as the CEO of the city and has many things to do. I would be a concerned citizen and a strong mayor just like my great-grandpa. I would bring new businesses to Marshalltown and work with the elected city councilors, city department leaders, and keep my city safe, clean, and growing.
Great. Thank you, Brianna.
You're welcome.
You don't know how much I wish you were mayor, because then I wouldn't have to be. And I loved your great-grandfather, and he did some wonderful things. Hey, how much do you appreciate having the viaducts in town because of foresighted people like her great-grandfather? I got corrected that we have 4 of them, not 3. But now that the one on Center Street is closed, you really appreciate that this town figured this out decades ago. Go to Ames and try to get across the tracks, you know. But thank you. Very good. Congratulations, too.
Thank you again.
Oh, wow. Super. Thank you. That will go up in the office downstairs. Okay. Number 2 on the agenda is, or E2, is National Library Week. And I believe we have some representatives from the library to come forward. I also have a proclamation for you.
Want to read it first?
Sure, let me do that first. National Library Week 2018 proclamation. Whereas libraries are not just about what they have for people, but what they do for and with people. Whereas libraries have long served as trusted and treasured institutions, and library workers and librarians fuel efforts to better their communities, campuses, and schools. Whereas librarians are leaders in the institutions and organizations in their communities, in the nation, and in the world. Whereas librarians continue to lead the way in leveling the playing field for all who seek information and access to technologies. Whereas libraries and librarians look beyond their traditional roles and provide transformative opportunities for education, employment, entrepreneurship, empowerment, and engagement, as well as new services that connect closely with patrons' needs. Whereas librarians and libraries lead their communities in innovation, providing STEM programming, maker spaces, and access and training for new technologies. The mayor's going to have to go to the library to figure out what maker spaces are. Whereas libraries are pioneers supporting democracy and effecting social change with a commitment to providing equitable access to information for all library users, regardless of race, ethnicity, creed, ability, sexual orientation, gender identity, or socioeconomic status. Whereas libraries lead in working with diverse communities, including people of color, immigrants, and people with disabilities, offering services and educational resources that transform communities, open minds, and promote inclusion and diversity. Whereas libraries and librarians and library workers and supporters across America are celebrating National Library Week now. Therefore, it is resolved that I, Joel Greer, Mayor of Marshalltown, proclaim National Library Week, April 8 to 14, 2018. I encourage all residents to visit our award-winning Marshalltown Public Library this week and explore what's new at your library and engage with your librarian. Because of you and our library leaders, libraries transformed. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Judy Lindholm. I serve on the library board as secretary and the representative from the county. I love our library. I'm so happy to serve. There are other representatives here tonight. Would you guys, these are friends of the library and other trustees of the library, and we're all here to support our library this week. I serve on the board because I love the library. I love to go to the library. I love to bring my grandchildren to the library. Every time I go, I think of all the things that are in those pages, all the adventures I can go on and the history that I can learn and the places I can go. The library is a place that opens up your mind. I love that the library provides space for people to gather. There are many opportunities for people to come together and learn from each other, or to do things in the community, to provide action in the community. People want to share and they want to learn. The library provides that space. I love that the library is a beautiful space. Our library is I am so impressed by our library. I have children in Chicago and Minneapolis, and their libraries don't hold a candle to our library. I love that. The library is a treasured city asset. The Marshalltown Library is an investment in our city. The library moves us forward. It provides a space to gather, a place for ideas. It improves the quality of life for all of our residents. And I think the library contributes to economic development. Because we chose to put a library in our space that we can be proud of, businesses can bring people to Marshalltown and show them a place that people care about, that they're willing to invest in. And I think that that is the soul of a city that's going to stay alive, that you're willing to invest in it. Thank you for your continuing support of our library. It takes all of us, and I think we all need to give a hand to the people that keep our libraries going. Sarah is a wonderful library leader, and I appreciate what she does for our community. Thank you.
Thank you. The Martha and Ty Foundation often uses the conference rooms there to meet, and it's a wonderful facility. It's really impressive to the Ty family people that come back to Marshalltown. So, and it was the #1 award and the only #1 award-winning library 2 years ago, 3 years ago, which was 4 years ago. Wow. Yeah, well, keep up the good work. You know, when I tell people to keep their remarks to 3 minutes and that sort of thing at the start, I ought to start telling people that once you've been here for a reason, and then if that reason is done, you don't need to stick around for the rest of the meeting. You're welcome to, but you don't have to. So, just want people to know that. Okay, let's. Yes.
I have a comment. We went over item E rather quickly, and I'd like to offer a comment and share in the idea that I took my second ride-along with the Marshalltown Police Department last week, and I would encourage all citizens to go through the process. It's very interesting. It's not time-consuming. I even got, my bonus was to see the canine officer in action, and so that was something new for me. Again, thanks to Mayor Tupper and his staff, and I certainly would encourage folks to take up that opportunity to do a ride-along. So thanks so much.
Was the dog used on you?
No. Thank you.
In mine, we arrested somebody and they were in the back seat, went out to the jail, processed them. The guy wouldn't cooperate, so he got put in the room that has only a drain in it. And the next day I found out that our associate had been appointed to defend him, and it was a little uncomfortable to have watched the whole booking thing, but it was fascinating. And those lights, I swear to God, you could play baseball with the floodlights that those squad cars have. It is interesting. Yes.
I have another comment, Your Honor.
You bet.
I wanted to thank our Tom McCoy and his committee who put on the movie last week, the officer involved, to bring to light the need for additional equipment to protect our first responders, our firefighters, and our police officers, to keep them safe as they care for us and as they keep our city safe. It was a great event. The movie was very moving, and the group has raised money to provide additional protective gear for our for all of our first responders, through many of them through the county, as well as our own fire and police department. So thank them for the opportunity, for sharing that with us, and thank the committee for raising funds to protect those who serve us.
Thank you, Councilor Cahill. And I know there was an editorial this weekend that invited anybody that hasn't seen that film to check with Jeff Hutton, the editor, and you can watch it, and it is worth the time. It really is a moving film that tells you what it's like to be in the uniform. Does anyone else have any other comments at the council table?
May I intrude? I'm not a counselor. I just wanted to call to the council and the city's attention that the Iowa State Bar Association publishes a magazine each month. In the April issue of the Iowa Lawyer, they have a article called Spotlight on Service, and the person who's been spotlighted for their community service in that article is our mayor, Joel Greer. It's a very good article. It begins talking about the length of his resume, which includes not only professional accomplishments, but an extensive inventory of community involvement, which I believe we all know. I just would like to congratulate him. That's a big honor, and I'm sure well-deserved. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I was surprised they published it when I sent it to them.
Well, there's a good picture.
It is a good picture. I'm proud of the picture. Yeah, it only cost $50. And then I'd like to make a comment too, because last weekend was the 26th annual Night of Stars event. The committee was chaired by Susan Crow, Brian and Kylie Lazier, and Janelle Whitcop. Last year was our 25th, and the speaker wasn't very good, but we hit a goal last year. I mean, we set a new goal last year. They blew through that goal by about $10,000 or $12,000. As of today, we think we raised $75,000 on Saturday night. And I get to the office today, and there's another check for $500 from one of our good manufacturers around here as an underwriter. That just was really cool on Saturday night, and I just had to give a shout out to that committee for the good they do. And I know the Animal Rescue League thing is coming up this Thursday night. We just got our tickets today and donated some animal things, and so head out to help them out Thursday night. In years past, both have done very well, and so I think if we did well on Saturday, we'll do even better than last year on Thursday too. So just be aware of that. Okay, if there aren't any other comments, Madam Administrator, do you have any comments tonight?
I do not, Your Honor.
Okay, let's go on to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved, Your Honor.
Any second?
Second.
Let's take the roll.
Martin,
Yes.
Weirin,
Yes.
Cahill,
Yes.
Gowdy,
Yes.
Hoop,
Yes.
Isom,
Yes.
Lamer.
Yes.
Okay, very good, carried. And would, Madam Secretary, would you read the consent agenda?
Yes, Your Honor. Approve the council minutes for March 26th. Approve the bill list in the amount of $1,230,345.12. Receipt of the civil service new hire list for County Clerk 2. Resolution ordering construction of the 2018 microsurfacing project, setting public hearing on the proposed plan, specifications, form of contract, and estimated cost, directing publication of notice to bidders. Project number STR 18001 for the 3rd Street, 6th Street, and Iowa Avenue to North Center Street. Resolution to approve the 28E agreement with the Marshalltown YMCA YWCA for operation of the Aquatic Center, and resolution setting public hearing for the fiscal year 19 consolidated transit funding application for the Marshalltown Municipal Transit Public Transit Program.
Thank you. Okay, we're good. Let's go down to motions and then reports under category H. The first one of which is the Convention and Visitors Bureau report by Val Ruff. Val.
What do I do? Oh, look at that. Magically appeared. Thank you. Val Ruff, 2906 Nelson Road, and I'm here to give an update for the Marshalltown Convention and Visitors Bureau. That could be a tongue twister. So, let's see, I just enter through here. So the first thing I want to talk about is about the current hotel motel tax revenue that we receive, the 67% from the city. Once the distribution is made to the city, then we receive that 67%. We're finding that those, you can look at those numbers. We have 13 and 14 all the way through 17, 18, and you can see that we've had a little bit of a decline in our, so we're just saying basically that we're kind of back to the pre-power plant revenue at this point in time. You can see the 17, 18 across the top. We're at about just over 276,000, which is down. Our budget was 315,500, so we're going to be down. We're going to have a little deficit, but we're watching our budget very closely right now, and we might end up being okay as far as by the end of June, because our fiscal year ends in June 30th. So that's kind of the bad news, and we'll just go on to all the good news now. So I just wanted to share some numbers that I think are pretty interesting to share about things that we've had going on, meetings and conventions. Gotta get my numbers, sorry. We've hosted 27 meetings and conventions that amounts to just over 2,100 attendees. We've had 48 sporting events and tournaments, and that amounts to over 16,000 attendees. Group tours, we've hosted 5 to 6 group tours, 207 attendees, and I just want to take a quick minute to share with you that we had a group last Thursday, and I was the step-on guide, and this group was from Ames. It was the Mary Greeley Prime Time Alive group. And just to kind of give you an idea, we typically have them meet at what a group tour would consist of. We have them meet at the Fisher Community Center, and I make sure that everybody sees the Fisher Art Collection, and they can't go through the art gallery without a docent tour from Karen Berger, because she does an excellent job of explaining Impressionist collection and telling the story about the Monet, the stolen Monet, and so forth. And everybody leaves in awe, because she's so good at what she does, and what a great gem we have in Marshalltown. And then we went on to, I just forgot where we went. We went on to the Veterans Home. We went down Main Street, and then we went through 13th Street, and it's always fun to explain to folks how the renovation of 13th Street and all the great things that are happening in that area. And then we went to the Veterans Home and took a tour of the Veterans Home, and people are always amazed. I think he said 488 residents and over 500 workers. So we got to see kind of the inner workings of the Veterans Home. Then we went to the Tremont, and of course JP and Jennifer treated 33 people to an amazing Italian buffet meal, which was out of sight. And then we went to the Orpheum, our Orpheum Theater, as Bob refers to it, and enjoyed the opportunity to go through the Orpheum and learn more about that. And then they went on to the Iowa Funeral Home Museum. And I just got a really nice card here from the gal that's the tour operator, just saying a million thank yous for the wonderful tour of your great town. We had a great time, and we learned a lot, and you did an awesome job. And so these are just some of the fun things that I get to keep in my office about just showcasing Marshalltown and making sure everybody has a great time and has a great experience. Back to the numbers, welcome bags. We had over 1,600 welcome bags that we prepared for visitors that came to Marshalltown. Visits to our web page, as far as our visit page on the Marshalltown or the MRP website, were listed as a visit tab, and we had over 18,000 views on the visit page. And then actual event views, which means they've been on the community calendar. We had over 11,000 visits to that calendar of events. We had 1,015 calendar posts, so that means people are using that calendar of events. And then our electronic sign that sits in the Hy-Vee parking lot, we've had just about 400 posts to that electronic sign. So just some fun numbers to share with you. And then we'll go on to partnerships. I'm probably leaving some folks out here, but these are just some of the partners that the Convention and Visitors Bureau works with. Of course, the Iowa Tourism Office. We have writers and bloggers. We actually have a writer that's coming up tomorrow that's going to visit with Marty Mitchell about the Iowa Funeral Home Museum and Education Center. And I don't know if you're familiar with this number, but we have about 600 visitors per month to this attraction in Marshalltown, Iowa. And then I just want to mention that also working with the Iowa Tourism Office, Zeno's was selected as one of the 99 restaurants representing 99 counties. And we just had a request for Zeno's pizza boxes, and so I was able to provide those to the Iowa Tourism Office, even though we're really not sure yet what they're going to do with those 20 pizza boxes. So it'll be fun to see what they do. So they're always promoting these 99 restaurants. So I don't know if you have an opportunity to get on the Iowa Tourism, but you can get e-blasts and updates and Facebook things from them that tell you different things you can check out around the state. And so that's just another partnership that we have. And then working with the city, working with Jessica on some wayfinding. We kind of got our marching orders for what we need to get done for right now to get that moving forward. working with Vision Marshalltown on social offerings. Central Business District, always working with Jenny with group tours that come down, that want to go shopping or eat in the downtown or see businesses in the downtown. Community events that take place in the Central Business District. And then Jenny and I also work on Restaurant Week as a fun way to really promote what's going on and places to eat in the downtown. Central Iowa Fair, we're working to create our fair as a concert destination. It's going to take us a little while, I think, to get to that goal, but we're having conversations right now, along with Kicks 101 on that. Iowa Valley Community College District, working with the Conference Center. Something new Rachel and I are working on is how we promote that challenge course as a destination for meeting, or not so much meetings, but for corporate retreats and team building. Utilizing that challenge course because I think it's one of a few in the state, and it's a great one. Another one of our great assets we have here. And then working with the Orpheum Theater on meetings, conventions, and then just events that are taking place that contributes to our quality of life and things going on. Bluegrass Music Association recently had an opportunity to work with this group. She's based out of Newton, but they like to meet here in Marshalltown because they like the facility of the Best Western, because they can have, I think they've got 5 bands lined up, and one of our own very own Lincoln Highway Band will be playing, and that takes place here in Marshalltown during Thanksgiving weekend. So an opportunity to work with her, and of course working with Buzz Bee Meadery, one of our newest attractions, and that is the only meadery in the state of Iowa, so I want to give a plug to that, and I think we all know who is behind that Buzz Bee Meadery. So I have an opportunity to work with Michelle on, sometimes we do some co-op advertising. We had an opportunity to be in the Iowan Magazine, and I said, well, I'll do something in the Iowan Magazine if you feature Buzz Bee Meadery. So, as a gift guide is one of the great things in the gift guide, so we just used a little leverage, and it was great to see Buzz Bee in there, and they're getting a lot of great press too from the Iowa Tourism Office right now. And of course the Best Western, working with the Little League. I just want to plug really quick, the Marshalltown Convention and Visitors Bureau has opportunities to work with a lot of our partners, these sporting events or these youth groups. And one of the things, and I know you'll all remember this, but we were able to help the Marshalltown Little League with some of our grant funding to help leverage this, the great work that Tim Keener and his guys do at the Marshalltown Little League, along with Coach Hansen, and bringing in over 1,000 people every weekend. I know they've had to cancel the last couple because of weather, but that takes place all the way through the middle of June. So they're working out there every weekend to bring those folks into Marshalltown, and we're always happy to provide as much hospitality and whatever they need to take care of those visitors when they're in town. Historical Society, and then also I've got to give a plug to this. This is a lot of words, but I just want to make sure that we reiterate that we know that the 2019 YMCA State Championship Swim Meet is coming back to Marshalltown. The thing that I really want to emphasize with that is we work side by side with the Y and Shelley and Carol and those folks at the Y, but if you really read here, members of the committee felt that the Marshalltown YMCA was better equipped to host a meet of this size, citing adequate public access to restrooms, exceptional spectator seating, skilled meet management staff, free parking facilities, as some of the reasons. Additionally, basically, they just felt that Marshalltown volunteers and leadership went on and above and helping in every aspect of the meet, from swimmer supervision, free access to the things that they need to get copies, managing the coaches and so forth. And I don't have to read it to you verbatim, but basically, is this a test? This is a true testament to our community, or to our YM and YW, and the work this community does to try to promote Marshalltown as a place for sporting events and tournaments. So I can't take any credit for that, but if we don't, I just wanted to make sure that everybody had an opportunity to know that that was happening. And this was a letter from the Iowa YMCA Competitive Swimming League Chair. So that's a pretty cool testament to our Y and its leadership. So these are just some of the key projects. We've done some strategic planning, working with Vision Marshalltown. I talked about wayfinding. We put together a Marshalltown video. Again, the Marshalltown Dining Guide, which we have a distribution strategy for that. We were at 69 dining options, and that started to fluctuate here a little bit lately. But I could say that we're over 60 dining options, I think is safe to say. And then just these are some of the things that we continue to work on in the community to promote attractions in the area. And I'm just going to run through really quick. This is where we're advertising that travel guide, Central Iowa Tourism Region, which takes the state of Iowa and divides it into three. There's Central Iowa, Western Iowa, and Eastern Iowa. And so those are some opportunities for us to do more advertising to get folks to come to town. The Iowan, other magazines, high school programs, local newspapers, and then this is what we do with local media. So we're always busy doing that. I've got a radio show that I do every Thursday, Experience Marshalltown, and that's always a lot of fun to either promote an attraction, a point of interest, a restaurant, a community event, or something that's going on that might be new that we want people to know about. And I just want to mention, if anybody has any questions on the new hotel, I did receive word from management that they'll be opening late summer. That has their address. They are taking reservations. They have an 800 number, and they have a direct line. If anybody is looking to get in touch with them, I have that information. And then the Iowa Funeral Home Museum, there's kind of a sneak peek at it. I know it seems like it's a little odd thing, but it's really cool. And you leave there with a lot of stuff in your head that you never thought of before.
I understand Bill Wilson is the docent there.
Oh, he is?
Yeah.
Okay.
And he'll do it any time that's convenient for you, not just the 2 times that they're regularly open.
Okay, because I know usually we have Marty Mitchell. That's one of the things we've done too as a board, is we're trying to have our board meetings in these locations. So that's always been interesting to meet in that facility. But that's good to know. Thank you for sharing. But I mentioned earlier, we have an Iowa Tourism has invited a travel writer. So it'll be interesting. I'll keep you guys posted on what they end up writing and blogging about. So I won't take any more of your time. Thank you for listening. That's what we've been up to. Do you have any questions for me?
Any questions? Well, thanks for the good report.
Yep, thank you.
On the restaurant front, I understand that the brew house has changed hands and is under new ownership and will be open again. La Coretta is on the cusp of being open again out on Old Highway 30. And it seemed like there was one. Oh, and the Orpheum restaurant is back open with
Your Plate or Mine.
Yeah, and the food is excellent there.
Yeah, it is really good. And I think there's a Coney, 3rd Avenue Coney dog.
Right, where there
So
used to be
we're learning about these too.
Yep,
So we're going to stay right at that 68 to 69 dining options.
great.
Thanks.
Thanks, Val.
In the bowling alley.
In the bowling alley, yeah, exactly. Yep. Wayward Social now. It's going to be way more than just bowling. So, okay. Oh, thanks for that report. The second report is about the fire department annual report. Chief?
Do you want me to pull up the PDF for you?
Please. Good evening, Dave Ryerson, Marshalltown Fire Department. So we will bump up a few pages here. Get to the important stuff. So quite a few changes in the department in 2017. We added a new deputy chief. We changed our fire and EMS reporting software. We received and put in service a new light rescue vehicle. And in 2017, we kicked off a project to put computer-aided dispatch mobile CAD in our fire apparatus. And obviously the anticipation of the new fire station, police station opening up, we're really looking forward to that. One of the things I'd like to point out is if it wasn't for the support of the council and the citizens and my staff and people, change usually is uncomfortable for people, and I appreciate the patience of my staff as we've gone through all these changes this year and with more to come this year. So if you look at what our activity was for 2017, we were about 3% down from the year prior. We have maintained about the same level of calls, within a few percentage points since I started here in 2014, and this is a breakdown of the calls that we run. EMS continues to be the most that we do, and that is a national trend. That is nothing that's new or something to do just with Marshalltown. That's a national trend with fire service responses. So as we look to do the annual report, and as we look to make good decisions on what we do with our budgets and where we want to go as a department, we look at a number of items on a yearly basis. So we look at response time performance, we look at the times of day, we look at the days of the week that we have calls, we look at what are called overlapping calls, look at the calls and what months they happen, and we look at all of those things. So the first thing I want to talk about is response time. And our goal is to meet the industry standard on response time, which is less than 8 minutes 90% of the time. So in 2017, we were above the industry standard. We were on scene less than 8 minutes 92% of the time. And just to point out, 45% of the time with our calls, we were on scene in less than 4 minutes. So we're meeting our goals in that perspective. So we looked at incidents by time of day, and you know, with a few minor changes, we stay pretty consistent from year to year. Typically from 8 in the morning to 8 at night are our busiest times of the day. And if I'll scroll down just a little bit further, and if you can see in red, that's 2016 versus 2017 in blue, to kind of give you a comparison of where we were in 2017 versus 2016 the year before. A few changes, but for the most part, pretty consistent. Same thing for our calls during the week. I'll just slide down at the comparison. You can see, once again, 16 is in red and 17 is in blue. We had a couple of days where we had some significant drops in the number of runs we call, but next year that data may be just, you know, skewed the other way. So this is a statistic that I look at pretty closely, and we refer to as overlapping calls. And the reason we track this is because when we have more than one call going at a time, that can significantly affect our response time for another emergency, or could mean that we don't have anybody available to ascend to a call. So this is something that we've been tracking since I started in 2014. Fortunately for us, we had a 13% decrease in those number of incidences in 2017, which is a good thing. But one of the things that I need to point out is we did have some months where we would have 3 calls going at the same time, which meant there would be absolutely nobody available to respond to a call. And fortunately, there were only a few months where that happened. But we do still see a number of incidents where, you know, if it's during the day, you might have 2 crews out running calls, and then the deputy chief or I will respond so that we make sure that we get somebody on scene. But that's something that we keep a close eye on. And then here's just a breakdown of the calls by month. Pretty consistently, we run between 200 and 250 a month. We did have a couple of months last year where we've dropped below that. But we've made up for that this year, and we've had some months over 250. So, okay. So this next chart is talking about the fire incidents that we responded to, and we responded to 166 fire incidences in 2017, and that was an increase of 6.5% from 2016. But probably the bigger thing to look at is if you go back to 2015, that's a 26.5% increase in our fire responses in 2 years. Our fire loss remained about the same, just a little under $800,000 in fire loss, but in 2017, like 16, we had one fire at an industrial complex that accounted for $500,000 or a little over $500,000 in that loss. Fortunately for us, Those industrial fires are kind of a low incident or low frequency type of event, but as you can see by this, they can be a very, very high dollar loss. So since we're an all hazards department, meaning we do some specialty rescue, we do EMS, we do hazmat, we respond to fire calls, we respond to EMS calls. This is just a breakdown of our training hours and our activity hours for 2017. So for all of 2017, we spent about a little over 13,000 hours doing training, responding to calls, taking care of equipment, doing OSHA safety training, and then actually doing fitness where our gentlemen are working out and trying to keep themselves in shape. So when I did my annual report in 2016, I talked to you about the Iowa Fire Service Training Bureau and the scandal that they had over there. And we had 10 people that ran into certification issues because of the scandal that they have. And just as a reminder, they had a gentleman over there that was not grading exams. He was just assigning a score and sending out certificates. They were never looking at it. So we got caught up in that. We had to put off some promotional exams and some promotional testing because of it. Glad to say that in 2017, we were able to get those people back through and get them tested, and all 10 of them passed their certification tests. So that's a plus. And then we added some training this year. We did a driver operator class this year, and this photo shows them driving part of the cone course in the fire truck. We certified the entire department in driver operator, as well as plans examiner, sprinkler system plan review, and alarm system plan review classes that we actually brought in from the outside and hosted here in Marshalltown. Another part of our job is fire prevention and public education. So in 2017, there were about 30 PR events that we participated in citywide. So things like Fire Prevention Week, homecoming activities, Holiday Stroll, Oktoberfest, block parties, Healthy Kids Day. We participated in all of those. So in 2017, we were able to contact and provide education to over 2,400 people in the community. And next year, my goal is to see that number go up. Also, another activity that we do in the fire department is we will provide smoke detectors to citizens who request them, and we will actually come and install them. We did team up with the American Red Cross. They targeted the Sunset Hills Trailer Park as an area to go in and install smoke detectors, and we went with them and installed 25 detectors out there. And then we had 6 additional requests for smoke detectors, and we went and installed those as well. Okay, codes enforcement. So in 2017, while we had increases in some areas, this is an area that we had decreased activity. We had a decrease in our inspections of about 34% between 16 and 17. Big reason for that is I had to pull a body out of the inspection side and send them back to the floor to cover for a couple of vacancies that I had within the department. I had somebody on medical leave, and I had somebody that resigned and left the department. So I had to cover that. So we had to pull them out. As a result, you can see we had a significant decrease in the number of inspections that we had. One of the things I'd like to point out is of the 178 initial inspections that we did in 2017, 113 of those resulted in a failure of their inspection. So if my math is correct, that's about 63%. Of the ones that we were able to get back and get re-inspected, an additional 12 of those failed to achieve compliance. So we still have those incidents where we're going out 3 and 4 and 5 times to achieve compliance. And then here's a breakdown. Here's a total breakdown of the inspections that we did in 2017. Now, if the council will remember, in mid-2017, we contracted with a third-party company called the Compliance Engine. And the compliance engine is a program that was free to the fire department. It's paid for by the contractors. And what they do is they submit, it's a repository for all of their testing and inspection records when they go in and look at hood systems and sprinkler systems and alarm systems. And what they do is they compile the data and then they provide us information about it. They also send out reminder letters to the business owners that, hey, you know, your system's coming up for review. You need to get that taken care of. While that helps us keep track of that stuff, it still doesn't exclude us from having to go out and do an inspection. But it is nice to know that there's somebody out there helping us try to keep an eye on it. Well, for the first year since I've been here, we had nobody retire in 2017. 2021 will be different, but for right now, no retirements that year. We did experience the loss of another retirement member. Captain Don Johnson passed away in 2017, and we also hired 2 additional employees, firefighter Jeremy Weirman and firefighter Reese Hall. So let's talk a little bit about the things that we did that were improvements for the department. I spoke about them briefly earlier. So as we looked at improving how we deliver service more effectively and more efficiently, we embarked on a light rescue vehicle. And they refer to it in the fire service as a fast attack type of vehicle. It's a commercial Ford chassis that we put a rescue body on, and then what we do is we will run EMS calls, we will run extrication calls in the county, we'll run illegal burns, carbon monoxide calls, trash fires. We'll run all of that with this small truck instead of running our larger vehicles. And basically the intent behind that is to save fuel costs and to save maintenance costs on the larger vehicles. Another advantage of that is since we contract with the other fire departments in the county to do their auto extrication for them, because the vehicle is 4-wheel drive and it's a little bit lighter, it's more maneuverable and easier to get around, and it's a lot safer driving them out on the gravel roads and the county roads when we go out and do those extrications. Another thing that we did was I spoke briefly about changing our fire and EMS reporting system. And based on the financial status of the state of Iowa, the program that we were using before was a software that was provided to us at no charge from the state fire marshal's office. However, with the budget cuts that they are experiencing, it was felt that this service was going to be going away. So we decided to be proactive and change before we were left with no way to report. And the reason it's so important for us to report is FEMA ties all of its assistance to firefighter grants, they tie them to reporting to the national fire databases. So if you're not doing that, you don't qualify for federal grants. So since we've had success in that in the past since I've been here, we really need to make sure that we do that. The other thing is the state of Iowa could pull our EMS, our license to do EMS, if we don't report to the national EMS database. So it was critical for us to do that. The other nice thing about this reporting software is because we're using a full program that we pay for, there's a lot more that we can do with it. We can track vehicle maintenance in it. We can track our training hours in it. We can do a lot of different things with it and help us pull statistical data when we need to do these reports. The other nice thing about this this program is it talks with our CAD program. So when the crews go out on a call, they push a button on their CAD program, and it automatically populates a time, and it automatically puts those times into the fire and EMS reporting software. So basically what we've done is we went from having to do 2 reports for every call to now we do 1 report, and it takes them 5 minutes. So we've improved our time and efficiency through that process. Once again, we're very excited about the opening of the new police and fire facility, and I do need to mention that our CAD project would not have been possible without a very generous donation from the Ann Kaiser Trust. They provided us a donation of $18,000, which was enough money for us to put CAD terminals in all of our first out vehicles and get that project started. So we very much appreciate their assistance. So as far as moving into the future, obviously the new building, we launched the CAD project back in December. We're at that point right now where it's up and running. We're still having a few little technology glitches with it that we're working through, but I think that we will get through those. Another nice thing about the terminals in the vehicles are the officer can, with the push of a button, pull up our fire hydrant maps. My staff spent about a month mapping out and GPS locating all the fire hydrants in the city. So now they can pull them up on a map, and we know the location of every hydrant in the city. The next step in that process will be we'll load all of the buildings that we have pre-plans for, and we'll load those in there too, so that we'll be able to pull that information up on scene as well. And with that, that concludes what I have, and I would be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions?
I do have one. Chief Ryerson, thank you. I was very impressed with your response times and how they mapped out. Do you feel that as we move into the new facility, will that change any, or is it, I mean, I know it may take a little longer to get a few places on the north end of town, but less on the south end of town. How will that?
I think that it will. When I put the map together of where we ran our calls, and then Insurance Services Organization, or ISO, has like a response criteria that they use for that. So if you looked at their response criteria versus the location of the new station, their 2.5 mile response time basically is for any ladder truck, and we get almost the entire city in that 2.5. The only thing we miss is just the south side of the Marshalltown Community College campus, but we get the entire rest of the city. And you're correct, we slid our response area a little bit to the south, but if you looked at that 1.5 mile radius that ISO uses, that arc went clear out of north past the city limits. Okay. So basically all we've done is we've moved it a little bit further south, which will improve our response time south, but I don't think it will affect us that much coming north.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Okay, thanks for the good report. Keep up the good work. Time for resolutions, and number one, Madam Secretary, would you read that one?
Resolution of support for the Marshalltown Community School District's Bobcat Ready campaign.
When approaches.
I don't know if we have to move them.
Dr. Schreck?
Go ahead. Okay.
I'm sorry.
May I have someone open the Bobcat Ready memo, I think. There. So thank you very much for giving me a few moments to talk about a pretty exciting initiative we have in the Marshalltown Community School District called Bobcat Ready, College and Career Readiness for Life Beyond High School. I believe all of you are probably well aware because it gets well publicized that Iowa ranks first in the nation for high school graduation rates. What they don't say so much, although it's become more public through the Governor's Future Ready initiative, is that Iowa ranks in the lowest, I think, quintile as it relates to post-secondary attainment in terms of getting any type of advanced degrees or beyond high school or certifications. And so what's scary about that is that I'm a proud graduate of Marshalltown High School and a proud resident of this community, as well as being the superintendent. When I was graduating with the largest class to graduate from Marshalltown High School, 518 students in 1981, I did not realize that the economy could only bear about 3 out of every 10 of us going on to some form of post-secondary education. Most of my classmates here in Marshalltown were able to walk right out of Marshalltown High School with or without a degree and receive very livable wages by going to work at Lennox Corporation, Fisher Controls, Marshalltown Trowel, or Swifts. And since that time, that dynamic has completely flipped on its head due to globalization and high tech and efficiencies and effectiveness that the economy has gained. So today, 7 out of 10 kids, or 70%, need to go on to attain some sort of post-secondary learning or credential, marketable skill in order to gain a job that will have livable wages. So that could be the military, it could be a vocational school, it could be going on to a 2-year degree or a 1-year certification through Marshalltown Community College, or it could be going on to a 4-year degree. So the other thing that we know is that just because a student meets the minimum requirements for high school graduation doesn't assure college and career readiness or success beyond high school as well. So what we have done is that we've taken a platform that was initiated a couple years ago by the American Association of School Administrators, for which I sit on their executive board currently, and we tweaked and crafted the platform that they have, or the indicators they have, to make sense for Marshalltown and for Iowa and for what we have available, which are the indicators that I believe you have received or that are before you. So for college and career readiness, what we're doing is building out a dashboard for which we're going to be communicating with parents and students as well as the community that these are the things that we believe, based on the research, that you need to do in order to be ready for that next step beyond high school. So in the academic arena, I don't think any of these will be a surprise, but we're looking at, first and foremost, students need to have a minimum of a 2.75 grade point average, and then they need to show that they've accomplished one of these other things. It could be having passed dual credit class that we have on campus or at MCC with a C or better, or completing an advanced placement course, meeting the same threshold or C or better, or it could be placing at a 3 on a 5-point scale or better on the AP tests. It could be taking a developmental reading or math course, which is the same course that MCC requires in order to access credit-bearing classes at MCC. So if a student were to graduate and not do well on the tests that they give, they would have to take a class in order to pass that test before they could, and pay for it, before they could take a credit-bearing class there. And we're actually, starting this year, we started offering the math remedial courses on the Marshalltown High School campus while students are juniors and seniors, so that they or their parents don't have to pay for that remedial course. They can pass that course while in high school and jump right into the credit-bearing courses in college. They can take a pathway of simply taking 4 years of English, math, and science. The state requirement is 4 years of English, but only 3 years of math and science currently in order to graduate. So if they're willing and able and succeed in doing 4 years, we would consider that an indicator as well. And of course, meeting minimum scores as far as the SAT or ACT, which four-year college going students would do, would meet that as well. Where the real meat in this is the career ready indicators. And so with career readiness, what we're expecting and what we're doing in terms of working with students on their Iowa Career Development Plan is that we want them to start engaging in discussions in middle school and then throughout high school in terms of identifying where their talents, their aptitudes, their interests, and their passions are, and really taking a look at some career pathways in order to pursue those. And Jackie Wyatt, our lead principal at Marshalltown High School, has been working very closely with Terry Hungerford at Marshalltown Community College for us to start showing those pathways through recommended sequences of courses that set you up well for whatever career that you want to pursue. But in addition to identifying one or more pathways of interest, we would expect kids to have met at least 3 of these other indicators: 90% attendance at school, having performed 25 hours of documented community service, Probably the biggest thing that we're working on right now is having actual workplace learning experiences. So all of our students go through career fairs. They have had the opportunity to tour some local businesses. Next year, we really want to build out job shadowing opportunities for students during their junior year. And during their junior or senior year, we really want them to have the opportunity to either formally or informally pursue internships, pre-apprenticeships, apprenticeships to truly get a taste of the working world in areas that might be of interest. In fact, we're working with local employers of our youth currently to try to develop a universal assessment that will not only allow students to show proficiencies and work readiness skills in their part-time employment, but that we will credit them with high school credit for, kind of like back in the DECA era and that sort of thing, as well as count as an indicator of career readiness for this purpose. Participating during your 4 years of high school in 2 or more organized co-curricular activities, whether those be athletic, fine arts, clubs. I'm a firm believer that participation in those in many ways develops the soft skills necessary to be successful in the workplace even more than the classroom does. So we want to recognize students that engage themselves in areas of interest beyond just high school. And many of our kids that are very highly involved in that arena may not be able to do the part-time employment, or the parents may prefer them not, so there's a couple different avenues. One of the things that we added that wasn't in the national research was no good conduct violations. So this would be whether in school or outside of school, students run into trouble with substances and are charged, that would be a violation of good conduct. We know that in local businesses, oftentimes passing the drug tests is a barrier or hurdle to potential employment, so we want to try to support that as well. What our intent is, and we plan to roll this out, it was originally planned to be rolled out with this year's sophomores, which are a national Gear Up group, for which we've been building out a lot of these workplace learning experiences through that national effort. But quite honestly, many of our kids attain many of these things today. The workplace learning experiences is probably the thing for most kids that will be a new thing next year. So we intend, starting with next year's seniors, to actually start recognizing through putting an embossed seal on their transcript and recognizing them in their graduation program if they meet the conditions of college and career readiness relative to this. I've been spending a lot of time over the last couple months, and will be in the month following, sharing this effort and seeking support of local business entities, leadership entities. Thus far, the Marshalltown Board of Education has passed a resolution of support. Marshalltown Regional Partnership, Marshall Economic Development, and the Chamber of Commerce have supported it through acts at their monthly meetings, seeking support obviously from the city. And then within the next month, I'll be presenting this to the Marshalltown Business and Education Partnership, Vision Marshalltown, as well as the Iowa Valley Community, or Iowa Valley College, Community College District Board, or MCC. So thus far, it's been 100% unanimous support, hoping for support from the city to be part of our partnership. We intend to hang a poster in every single classroom of these indicators, as well as representing the entities that are supporting it, because it does take a village for all our kids to be successful, and we hope that you will be a part of that. I'm happy to answer any questions anyone has.
Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved, Your Honor. Second, Your Honor.
Any discussion or questions? Roll call.
Cahill?
Yes.
Gowdy?
Yes.
Hoop?
Yes.
Isom?
Yes.
Lamer?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Weirin?
Yes.
Carried. Thank you. Let's go to resolution number 2, please.
Resolution designating an amount not to exceed $13,950 in local option sales tax fund balance to purchase Civic Recreation Program software to integrate with the city's Civic Plus software.
I was going to say, Jenny with Parks and Rec is here to discuss that further.
Jennifer Hart, Recreation Supervisor. I'm standing in for Ann while she's on vacation. The Civic Rec program that we had a chance to demo is a program that is along with the Civic Plus website that we already currently are running on. This process, this Civic Rec program and software is more what we are used to and what we need in our department now. The ActiveNet system that we currently use is outdated. We've had it for over 10 years, and it is probably 5+ years behind in updating. The amount of volume that we bring in for reports and things like that, it's not conducive to. When we purchased the new Tyler software, it was not, it did not recognize the Tyler software, where the Civic Rec does recognize Tyler software. So when we do our closeouts at the end of in the evening, it integrates well with Tyler. So we are hoping that this system also will be a integrating system for our leagues and our youth leagues. One point that we can now do with this system is point of sale down at the Aquatic Center. That's what we're hoping to integrate in. And with ActiveNet, every module that you use in ActiveNet it costs more money. So you have to purchase that module in order to use that module. So league software, you have to purchase that module. We just had to purchase the online reservation module in order to utilize that. So there's a lot of things that ActiveNet can do, but it costs more money to have those modules available to us. And with Civic Rec, it's all inclusive. So every time they make an update, it updates the whole system. And so we don't have to integrate and update every 2 weeks. Sometimes, ActiveNet comes out with a new update. There are pieces of ActiveNet that are very outdated when it comes to reporting. We can't make our own reports and tell it to what we want to pull out of ActiveNet. Where Civic Rec, we can build our own reports like the Tyler software that our financial department is using. So I can entertain questions and I can answer any questions that you might have.
Mr. Lamer?
Does the Tyler software not have a set of programs that'll run this? Do we have to get why do we have to go to a different supplier? Doesn't Tyler have that same capability?
Diana Steiner, Finance Director. Tyler does have a recreation program, but it's not developed very well yet, and the Parks and Rec staff did review it, and they didn't like it. It's not far enough along to be used.
They have a program, but it doesn't meet our needs?
Right.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any other questions? Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Gowdy?
Yes.
Hoop?
Yes.
Isom?
Yes.
Lamer?
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Weirin?
Yes.
Cahill?
Yes.
Thank you. Carried. Number 3, resolution.
Resolution designating an amount not to exceed $65,000 in local option sales tax fund balance for the design and engineering of the Lynn Creek Iowa River Trail connector.
I will take off the introduction of this item, and then we do have some individuals who can speak further to it. We have a project that's going to happen here in Marshalltown, which is really a catalyst for making some great connections with our existing trail system and the Lynn Creek Trail and our current and future growing system of the Iowa River Trail. And this is an opportunity to use a project at the 6th Street and Ingledew address to basically make that connection and provide our recreational community with quick ways to get food and drink while on the trail as well. And so the concept with, I will pull up a map here as Mr. Carter is speaking, but would be to basically connect 6th Street in Ingledew all the way up to the Iowa River Trail north of 6th Street, or on 6th Street north of the railroad tracks. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Carter.
Pardon me, Joe Carter, 610 Elmwood Drive. Thank you for your time tonight. Janelle, my wife Janelle Carter, and I have lived in this community for 23 years. We've raised our children here. I am the president of Marshalltown Company, formerly known as Marshalltown Trowel, for the past 20 years. My wife is a member of the school board. Over those years, we have certainly seen many of our administrators, teachers live outside the community. As the president of our company, we know that roughly 40% of our salaried workforce live outside of Marshalltown. And we've waited for a long time for developers to give us more housing, give us more, whether it be rental, whether it be for buy or purchase housing. And so we've decided, rather than investing our money in Wall Street and some of those sort of things, that we're going to take on a project as novices, as developers. So we've looked around town, talked with Tom Dimerly, and came up with the location at the old Crosby Pool site, and said that's one that would be absolutely beautiful to add to our housing. So we intend to start with Phase 1, 14 multifamily rental units. We hope that they will be executive level with very, very nice interiors, nice finishes, very contemporary look on the outside for these rental units. And so as we develop that thought process and intending to do that, we looked at what we can do, and we're very outdoorsy people. We utilize our Lynn Creek Trail to walk, to bike, and we thought that we can put a trail there to connect the Legion down to the Lynn Creek Trail. When the Busbys bought Wayward Social, we thought that would be perfect for, you bet. While we're having these technical difficulties, I'll just keep talking. So our hope is to create a path to get to the Lynn Creek Trail. That was originally our idea, all the way from roughly the skate park to connect to the Lynn Creek Trail there, to go across the old 6th Street Bridge, to come across the Legion Golf Course, which is owned by the city, to cut across the Naughton property, to go across the Wayward Social, then ultimately across our property, which we intend to put a 10-foot wide path there, and ultimately leading to the Legion Golf Course, where they already have food and drink there, as well as obviously golf. So as we worked on that project and hoping to break ground yet this summer, we talked to the Busbys about putting something across their property along the western side behind their building, where the icon or arrow is there on that property, and then also talk to the Legion about getting as close as we can on the south side. But then as that arrow is showing there, cutting across part of the golf course, getting onto the city right away, and then ultimately the 6th Street Bridge. We've been on many paths over the years in different locations, Marshalltown, all the way to Melbourne, all the way to Riverview Park. We have no place to stop and get a drink, eat food, and it's clearly one of those things that can get, or it is awesome for a path to bring more people to the community. And so since we already had the Legion set up to do that, and Wayward Social already set up to do that, and hoping to do even more in those two locations, we thought this might be the impetus to hopefully drive more path onto the trail. And then as the city has looked at it, could we also get this then to the Iowa River Trail in a better fashion? And I'll let Jessica speak more to that. But I just want to say that Aaron Busby's here tonight, with Wayward Social. Randy Kessler is also here with the Legion Executive Committee of the Legion. And I know that both those guys are in support of it, and they will probably have some comments as well. So questions of me?
Could you please describe, Mr. Carter, one more time about where it comes around the Wayward Social, and it's going north? Where does it go into the city right of way?
You bet. So as the arrow is showing there, we'll try and run. I think the Busbys would like it to run fairly close to the west side of their building as that arrow shows. And then we would be onto the Naughton property. We've talked to Rich Naughton. He understands what we're trying to do there. We don't have a deal yet on that property, so we don't know exactly how that's going to run. So if you can move the arrow then further to the north, that next red line, that is where the Legion property begins, the Naughton property ends. And so we would try and tuck all the way to the east side of the Legion property. Running there as that arrow shows, we'll be very close to the number 7 tee box. So we've got to work around that, and then hopefully just before we get to that tee box, we can cut east, get onto city right-of-way, and then ultimately onto the old 6th Street Bridge. Does that help?
Yep, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Aaron Busby, proprietor of Wayward Social. I just want to make a few quick comments. First of all, I'd like to commend Joe for the commitment and investment that he's about to invest in a much-needed housing project. And really all I'd like to add is that we have our long-term, if you've driven by Wayward Social, formerly Totem Bowl, you'll see that we've made quite a few changes, and what you see on the outside is just tip of the iceberg of what's going on the inside. And once we finish the 4 walls, what's within those 4 walls, we would like to, as you can see how it's drawn up there, we do have some land behind the building that if down the road we would like to develop that into more outdoor amenities. Which could most likely include sand volleyball, which seems to be something that's requested quite a bit, bocce ball, putt-putt. We're not quite far enough along to plan those right now, but that's why we feel like this is a great addition to the community, and would like, if it goes behind our project or our property there. It gives us the great connectivity that seems to be a buzzword right now with what's going on up north. And I like to often paint the picture, Jessica, if you could be so kind just to zoom out a little bit. And if you're driving north on 6th Avenue and you see some new higher-end housing or nicer housing, and you'll see people playing sand volleyball behind Wayward Social in our parking lot, full and bustling with people playing golf. At the Legion, we have the skate park, the aquatic center, the Mega 10 park that's just been redone, softball, baseball diamonds, the YMCA. We've really just developed quite a remarkable recreation campus right in the center of our town, and I think that that bike path really just connects everything together. And yeah, that's all I have to say unless there's any questions.
I do have a question. I'm not even sure who to direct it to, whether it's one of you guys or maybe His Honor the Mayor will know an answer as well. Do we have any statistics on what the impact of the trail system, the Iowa Trail, what that is going to be for the community? And do we have any statistics on how or any data on how the Lynn Creek Trail is currently being used? And I know those are, I don't know whether we have any soft numbers or any, it's not like we have a hose over the trail to count how many tires go by or have anyone counting, but just to get a feel for what we think the impact of connecting to the Iowa Trail will be.
Yes and no. And the yes is, there are statistics that show the economic development that results from having a trail like this. But the person that holds that information is with the Iowa Natural Heritage Foundation. It's Nate Bolton's wife, Andrea Bolton, is the trail expert around the state. I know that she has collected data in the different trails around here. She's also predicted that this is going to be the next high trestle trail because it's going to be so pretty. And the one going north to Steamboat Rock will have 19 bridges, and that will attract people in. I know that up in Minnesota, southern Minnesota, the route trail has had significant economic impact with their trail system. I just simply don't know what the answer is today, but I know and have the email address of the person to ask. In terms of the use of the Lynn Creek Trail, I think it has been measured, but it's been some time since it was. I think the last time we had it measured was when we were looking at doing the connection between the Melbourne Trail and the Lynn Creek Trail. Anecdotally, my wife and I are on it typically every weekend on Saturdays and Sundays, and we're seeing more and more use, so people are realizing it's a great asset and that they ought to take advantage of it.
To just build on that answer, I do believe that there's been some experimentation with trail counters on portions of the Iowa River Trail and Lynn Creek Trail. We have a meeting on Wednesday where I can verify that information and if we have any good data for comparison purposes.
I do think that's some information that we need to know, or to get some predictions from Ms. Bolton of what those numbers will look like. I think that that's important because I agree. I use the Lynn Creek Trail, and you can go from Riverview out to Grimes Farm, and you get a water fountain when you're out there. So having connections to other places where you can access food and drink, I think, is a key point for our community and a good building point. And but I still would like to see those numbers if we can get some idea of what kind of impact we're talking about.
You bet.
Just wait.
We would have, what's that?
Let the council work on it first. Give me a second, okay? Go ahead, Bill. Sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Your Honor, a couple questions. Is this the first part of the trail that goes on private property, to your knowledge?
I would say that what we would do is we would not have this on private property without an easement. If you look at, there are parts of the Lynn Creek Trail actually over by 12th Street where it does run on private property. The city does not have that as right of way, but there is an easement for the trail there. And so as we've had our conversations, that was the feasible way that we felt that this could happen, is to grant the city an easement for the trail.
So over a period of, let's say, 50 years, when these properties sell and new owners come in, what will be the effect on the city? Who owns these portions of the trail? Ownership.
We're talking about the city being the owner. Ultimately, one of the things that we have in Iowa is recreational liability, and so there's reasons for a municipality to be an owner of infrastructure like that.
I realize that this is at the design and engineering stage, a plan. Do we have any commitment for skin in the game for this construction if it should happen? Meaning a public-private partnership?
At this point, the part of that public-private partnership that's been solidified is Mr. Carter has said that he would pay for the installation of the trail on his property. And so that's as far as we've had that conversation at this point. I think a lot more needs to be known in terms of cost. We're working with some estimates, which could be good estimates. The one thing which is the sort of the unknown in all of this is the Naughton property. And there are ways to not have anything on that property, which then would either put it onto 6th Street right of way or come around on the backside on the Legion property. So at this point, we have a preferred design, which is to, the shortest point between A and B would be getting through the Naughton property. But if that's not something that's possible to do, then there are other design alternatives that would need to be explored.
Your Honor?
Yes.
May I?
You may.
I understand that we don't have control of any of these pieces of property except the one piece that goes across the bridge by the skate park and headed up to 6th Street. The other property are all privately owned. If this was a subdivision, we'd make the subdivider put it in and give it to us free of charge. But we're not there's no streets here that are going to be put in, or utilities going to be put in that would be publicly owned. They'll all be privately owned. Before we sign a contract to have an engineering firm start to do any work, I want to make sure that we have that our attorney has had the opportunity to provide us with signed easements of giving us authority to let our people even go on those pieces of property and do the work. None of that's been done, at least that's my understanding. We as the city, just because we are the city doesn't mean we can go onto private property and run a bunch of lines with some surveying equipment and look about. We just don't have that authority. So to be on that property, first of all, we need that legal paperwork done. I'm not opposed to bike trails. Don't get me wrong. I took our plan that we got, and I have coffee with some pretty good people that have been in this town a long time, and I couldn't get one of them. Not one of them would agree to use public funds for this project. And I'm kind of on the fence. I know I can see where we could get some good benefit out of it, but at the same time, they're going to get some benefit out of it too, because when he advertises those apartments for rent, he's going to be able to say, hey, we also got a connection to here, and here with your bicycles, and that's a drawing point for him too. So we both have skin in the game, and we both have a reason to be building it. But I'm having a little trouble getting over the fence and using public money to do it. That's it.
Okay. Any other comments?
Yeah.
One thing I'd like to just say, at this point, we do have permission from Aaron and from Joe, and then the Legion has been agreement from that.
Written permission.
Right, and so ultimately, I mean, that's something that happens as part of any sort of standard engineering, that we wouldn't be going trespassing on anybody's property. That's just part of the process of getting this going, that we wouldn't certainly have that in place until we knew that we were going to do something and that you were dedicating funds towards doing that. So that would happen, but it certainly hasn't happened now, only because there's nothing to do at this point. There's been no need to actually have anybody out on site doing anything. It's all been just this sort of visual from maps and aerials. So what is before you tonight would be moving us to that next point where whatever engineering firm that we'd be working with would need to be doing that in conjunction with the city before stepping foot on anybody's private property.
Okay, well, that isn't the way we were led to believe. I was led to believe that you were ready to go to work.
I mean, go to work means looking at design alternatives.
Yes,
I mean,
do it.
There's design options that need to be looked at, and like I said, there's one property where we just don't know what role it will play, and so that's where there's alternatives that need to be looked at.
Well, why don't we get that piece of property? Somebody get that piece of property. Either we know we got it or we don't have it, and then let's go forward with this. Then we'll know what we got to work with. Right now, you're telling me that we only got half of the length of this bike trail that we know where it's really going to go.
Actually, no. There are some alternatives here that we've discussed with the other individuals that I can kind of talk through.
I understand.
But that's where ultimately myself and the other people who have been part of this, we're not engineers. Some of us might be, but this is not our specialty. And so this is really the point where to figure out if this is a feasible project and what route is the most feasible and cost effective to get somebody in here to examine those alternatives, whether it be 6th Street right-of-way, whether it be sort of, around the property. The city actually owns the property that the Legion is, part of the Legion Golf Course. There's a lease that governs that, and I don't know if you'd like to talk more.
I know that. I already know that.
Mr. Kessler?
Hi, Randy Kessler from the American Legion. I'm here tonight to voice support for the project. We look forward to having a very nice housing addition overlook our course. And best case scenario, if the Naughton property is obtained by Joe, then the part of the trail that comes through the Legion property is minimal. It'll be behind the 7T box area right on 6th Street. And if anybody drove past there today, it looks like we've already started on the project for fence removal thanks to a drunk driver over the weekend. But we have not. But the fence would have to move in a few feet. To the south of the T box, it'd have to move in to the west a few feet to accommodate the trail. And the best case scenario, that's about the only footprint that'll be on the property that we lease from the city. So, you know, we're all behind it. We think it's a great thing for the city. I can tell you, I don't have any numbers on use, but I can tell you from experience, from being on over the years, several fundraising poker runs on motorcycles, in the Dallas County, Polk County area, stopping at the establishments that are along the path. In the summertime, those establishments are swamped from the bicycle riders. They don't just have to ride from point A to point B, there's someplace for them to stop. And that part of the path is very busy, and I think that would bring people into the community if we had places for them to stop and not just a ride from point A to point B. I think it would help attract people to the community. It'd be one more reason that may help them decide to come to the community. It may be one more reason for somebody to use to not leave the community. It'd be a great boon to the recreation area there, and you know what, we're all for it. It would help us be more active in the community, something we've strived for at the Legion for the past 3 years, and this would be a great opportunity for that. So anyway, we support the project, and I hope you guys do too. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kessler. I know that the Legion's done a nice job of fixing up the building, and they're doing an outreach program to make people comfortable to dine there, even if they are not veterans, and so that's another gem in our community. Mr. Rogers, let me ask for a motion and a second first. We've been kind of putting the cart before the horse. So is there a motion to approve the resolution first?
I move for approval.
Could I get a question first? I've been trying to work my way in here. As in the past, I've been opposed to outside engineering. Would the question be that our engineering department be capable of engineering a bike trail? And if so, why can't we do that instead of paying this kind of money to someone?
I would say that would probably be something where there's a discussion to have with Justin in a situation where we're full staffed. Currently, we're down 2 positions in that department right now, and I know that there is other engineering work that's likely going to be outsourced just because we do not have the staff to do that right now. So I would say right now, no. Unfortunately, we don't have a time frame for when we'll hopefully have that department back to full staffing.
But also, this project is not a next week deal. It's reliant on property acquisition and would be down the road anyway. So maybe at that point we would be able to do that.
It's possible. I would say that it's kind of Mr. Carter's timeline that's pushing this a little bit in terms of, you know, when we would like this to happen, to make sure that we're making connections and that this is moving forward. You know, there's an update that we can certainly give you on our hiring status in the engineering department and what we're planning to do to try and fill the vacancy that we have. But at this point, we haven't even pushed out that second advertising to try and fill a position that we'd like to fill.
I just think we should try to keep that in mind.
Is there a second to the motion? There has been a motion made to approve the resolution.
I so move.
Okay.
Who moved?
Bethany Warren.
Thank you.
So we have a motion and a second. I have been forgetting to ask if there have been any public comment, or not public comments, but contact with the clerk of court. Let's have a standing deal with Madam Clerk that if anybody has contacted you on an issue that's on the agenda, you let us know. Otherwise, I'll skip that part of it. Is there anybody else who would like to comment up here before Mr. Brages is invited to the mic?
Only
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Definitely. I just had one other question on the bridge. I think I'd brought that up before, but if I remember correctly, it was discussed whether that was a, what's the word I'm looking for? Something that we can't do anything with, historical value of any sort.
The bridge actually becomes a very integral part of this project, and it is. I think there was an inspection report from 2 years ago, which does show that it would be usable, but there would be some repairs and updates that would need to be made to it. I believe that it's been expressed that the condition of the top of the bridge is not in great condition. There's also concerns about the weight limit that could be on that bridge, so there would be some things that would need to be done to restrict, no vehicles on the bridge, and probably restricting sort of even the number of people or that could potentially be on the bridge at one point in time. So it would be useful for conveying people across Lynn Creek, but there are still some things that would need to be done to it to make it completely usable as part of a trail connection.
That was part of one of my concerns, and I am for the project. I also concur with Al on the engineering department. I think both the entities, or all three of the entities, would probably agree that it's not a real big push. I know Mr. Carter is eager and ready to get his end of it going, but that being said, it's not something that has to be done in the next 2 weeks or whatever the case may be, as long as it's part of his project and also Aaron's. But I am for the project. I think it would do all three of those entities good, and the city. So that being said, I also concur with Al about as I said, the engineering department. We seem to be getting into a lot of times that we hire a lot of our work done, which is a big concern. It's been a concern of mine for 4 years, trying to figure out getting people in here that are qualified to do the work for us. I've never studied the amount of what we pay outside engineering firms, but I do know it's a great amount of money. And so comparably to $65,000 is not a big figure. It comes out of our local option sales tax, which I agree with Leon, is there's a fine line there whether we should use that for a project that's kind of a project that just for the immediate future, once it's built, it does generate or should generate money to both those entities, or all three of them, I mean. So that being said, there are concerns. As far as spending the money, I guess the old adage is it takes money to make money. So that being said, I yield.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Your Honor. So I just am rewinding back to how Mr. Carter first presented this project, and that was to attract more people to live in Marshalltown. So that's the big picture, is that we have more residents in that higher end housing. I think it's a really good thing for our city to offer that housing for executives. There's also the tourism that this could bring, and that's a wonderful thing. And it's just really great to have our city full of new landmarks, and this would be just one way for people to get over to the Legion, see the Freedom Rock, the Jet. It's just really, those are neat landmarks in our community. Plus having the trails connect, that's a really big deal too. So I think it's a great project. I think local option sales tax is actually the perfect way to pay for it. It's a one-time purchase. It's not something like we were talking about doing something like a salaried position year after year. This is exactly the type of thing that Lost should go for, in my view, because this will lead to more sales tax dollars coming into our city. So it's a win-win, win-win, as far as I can tell.
Thank you.
Your Honor. Oh, do you have? I can yield.
Go ahead.
After listening to the conversations here tonight, could we amend the motion and have a resolution amended so we say that we agree with the concept and would like to look and would like to work a little harder on some of the details before we approve this, the money, but we approve the concept so that the developer can go ahead knowing that we like the concept. We just have to work out to find the rest of the stuff. Is that possible?
I would assume our city attorney would confirm that there can be an amendment to the resolution.
Well, obviously, the resolution could be amended. I'm not sure it's worded in the documents, and I'm not sure what the amendment would be.
Your Honor, I guess my only comment to that would be, does amending approval really initiate any action with the engineering firm rather than having the motion just tabled? And so therefore I would suggest that we move to vote. And I guess my only comment in addition to that would be, we continue to talk about Marshalltown being a destination and making it a destination. And I think the Trestle Trail is as many awards and recognition as it's got it by doing something similar to this. So what a better way to enhance what we currently have, and also better recognize the businesses in town that continue to evolve Marshalltown into what it is.
Because we do have a motion and a second on the table, I would like at this time to invite Mr. Barajas back up toward the microphone.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. David Barajas, CEO of the Marshalltown Regional Partnership. And I just want to say that I'm here to support of this project from our organization standpoint, and thank Mr. Carter, Mr. Busby, and Mr. Kessler, and all others that have been involved with this project. Housing and quality of life activities are things that we talk about a lot here in our community throughout the state, and is very much needed when we talk about the importance of a quality workforce, which is being talked about throughout the country, especially also here in the state of Iowa. It's these types of projects that help attract and retain a quality workforce. And all the work that's been going on this project, as Mr. Carter talked about from our office, Tom Daimler with Marshall Economic Development has been a big part of this project, and I know a lot of what's been going on, and this project I think is perfect to add to all the great work and activities that have been going on throughout the community. So workforce is a big deal as we're trying to bring in new jobs into the community, and as we're trying to bring more people into our community, the housing that goes with this. I think it's just, as Mrs. Warren said, this is just a win in so many different ways, and I just wanted to provide our support to the project. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And at this time, I would invite comment from the public.
Thank you, Your Honor. Gary Thompson, 601 East Main. To answer a few questions for Mr. Lamer, if you look at the blue line, and except for the Naughton property, everything north of the blue line to Lynn Creek is your property. It's the city's.
No.
Yes.
They're putting the path on the golf course.
The golf course is yours.
No.
You lease it to the Legion for $2.50 a year.
I need to correct you. All we lease to is a little area right along the creek. The Legion owns all the rest of it. We just own a little piece 60 feet or so along the creek that we had to maintain because DNR said we had to maintain the quality of the creek. So everything else is owned by the Legion.
Okay, we're going to agree to disagree because I checked with the Marshall County Assessor's Office. In that land, if it's 60 feet, I don't know how that could generate $2,500 in taxes if it was turned over to the Legion. So the information I got from the Marshall County Assessor says the Legion pays taxes on 14 holes. There are no taxes collected, property taxes collected on 4 holes, basically. So everything north of the blue line is my understanding. So what I was going to offer up, I'm in support of this project too. And if my information is accurate, there's a real simple solution here. When the lease comes up on the land, this project will pay for itself. In the future, if you decide not to lease that land to the Legion and sell it to them for $2.50 instead of $2.50 a year, that land will then become taxable like the rest of the golf course and generate $2,500 a year. So in 20-some years, this project pays for itself. It's a win-win for everybody. You know, and I understand the concern. You're actually talking about putting part of the bike trail on private property. They're going to gain from this. But that can already happen. The bike trail passes past private property. People can build things, like in Madrid, there's a bar that sits next to the bike trail. It's on private property. It's next to the bike trail. I don't have a problem with businesses benefiting from being on the bike trail or this extension of it. But if those of you that are hedging your bets or on the side of the fence that are against it, the simple solution is either ask Randy and the board of the Legion to void the lease, sell them the land, and let them start paying property taxes on it, or when the lease comes up in the future, that's when you decide not to lease it back to the Legion and offer it for sale to the public, and then you're going to get the tax money from it. And of course, the Legion would buy it because it's part of their golf course. I think that's the win-win for all of you, and I support this project. Thank you.
Any other public comment?
Mark Eaton, 1007 South 10th Avenue. Does this work?
The camera has to basically switch to it.
So would you go to the planning and zoning website and pull up the agenda for the 12th? So 2 properties, MHS properties, Mr. Clark's property is going to petition for a sidewalk deferment. And in that, there's this map. Can you pull that up? So there's your proposed trail. So I heard Mr. Carter say he's in for paying for his section of the trail. I haven't heard Mr. Busby say he's in for paying his section. We're still working out the Naughton issue. We're talking about $65,000 in engineering fees, but if you read in the memo in this planning and zoning business, it says that this total project could cost $700,000. So this $65,000 is just a nut to get you in the door for the $700,000. So I'm not for this project, and I think you guys knew this map was there. I should have pulled it up earlier.
I would like to clarify, it was actually my memo that I included in the council packet that mentioned the $700,000 estimated price tag. And to clarify the $65,000, that includes bridge engineering as well. That we've talked about the bridge as part of that. That is not something that our internal engineering staff has any expertise in doing. So there would still be an element that even if we were doing the whole design internally would have to be contracted out, and that is estimated at the $15,000 to $20,000 mark, which coincides with 10% of estimated bridge repairs of $150,000 to $200,000. And so, yes, as we've been talking about this, looking at whatever design it might be, we've been talking about a price tag somewhere of $700,000 by the time you add the bridge into that as well. Ultimately, what I'd like people not to focus on is this map, because while it is part of our planning and zoning project, this is just an exhibit at this point. This is in no way intended to be a document that the city is saying that this is what we would be proposing to build. As I mentioned before, the thing that we have not done is really any of the engineering work to determine what options are out there for the design. As we've mentioned a few times here, there is right-of-way on 6th Street. It's complicated right-of-way, but if that's a route that has to be taken, there are routes to go there. And so ultimately there are multiple design options which really need to be in the hands of an engineer at this point to come back to you with the best option possible.
I'm not going to recognize you again. You've had your 3 minutes. Anyone else like to comment? Any other discussion by the councilors? If not, let's call the roll.
Hoop,
As proposed, no.
Isom,
Yes.
Lamer,
No.
Martin,
No.
Weirin,
Yes.
Cahill,
Yes.
Gowdy.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Carried.
4-3.
Thank you. Let's go on to the next resolution then.
Resolution setting a date for public hearing on amendment number 7 to the urban renewal plan for Marshalltown Urban Renewal Area number 3.
A quick introduction on this. This is a resolution just to set a public hearing. Urban Renewal Area number 3 is the commercial urban renewal area on the south side of the city, extending from Olive Street and Center south down to Iowa Avenue and then branching out onto Iowa Avenue. What part of Iowa Avenue that is not currently part of it is from the western city limits to South 12th Street. So what is proposed is to add in those properties, those parcels fronting South 12th Street. And so there is that part of adding in the land as well as then establishing authority for the city to be able to consider a development agreement with a development that would be taking place within that new area for storage units. And so those actions do have to happen separately. The public hearing is proposed for May 14th.
I move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Let's roll call.
Isom,
Yes.
Lamer,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Weirin,
Yes.
Cahill,
Yes.
Gowdy,
Yes.
Hoop.
Yes.
Carried. Thank you. Next resolution.
Resolution to fix a date for a public hearing on proposal to enter into a sewer revenue loan and disbursement agreement and to borrow money in a principal amount not to exceed $3,500,000.
Diana Steiner, Finance Director. As discussed with you at the last council meeting, we want to utilize the state revolving fund to finance the manhole and pipe repair that DNR needs us to fix. In addition, we will use the sponsored project loan to improve the water issues at the city parking lot on First and Church Street. This is a fixed interest rate loan, and for 20 years. It is much lower than any rate we could get if we went out for a bond issue, and it's a lot less expenses related with it. It will be paid with sewer fees. It has no effect on your property taxes. The borrowing of money does require that a public hearing be set, so we're requesting the public hearing be for April 23rd at 5:30.
I move that we set the public hearing.
Is there a second?
Second, Your Honor.
Any discussion?
Your Honor, I just want to make sure that somebody's double-checked the sewer rates to make sure that they'll cover the cost, the annual cost.
Yes, this was one of the projects that was included in our most recent sewer rate study to be funded with debt service, essentially, and was programmed out that way. So, yep, we've made that confirmation. So, essentially, the rates that we're collecting now are there to pay the debt on this project.
Okay, good enough.
Roll call?
Lamer,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Weirin,
Yes.
Cahill,
Yes.
Goudy,
Yes.
Hoop,
Yes.
Isom.
Yes.
Carried. Next resolution, please.
This is a public hearing regarding selling 519 North Center Street and resolution adopting tentative resolution providing for the conveyance and transfer title to Galinda Reyes.
I declare the public hearing is open. Have there been any written comments received by the clerk?
I have not received any written comments.
Are there any public comments? Should we do staff review?
Yes, this is 519 North Center was a property that was part of our dangerous and dilapidated program, and we are to the point where it is clear. The county has abated any past due taxes on it, and we did accept bids. The highest, or the only bid received was from Galinda Reyes, who is an adjoining property owner.
Thank you. Any council comments? I declare the public hearing is closed at 7:26
We
p.m.
need public comments.
I thought we asked, we did.
Okay.
Okay. Next item on our agenda.
Vote.
Do we have to
Vote.
vote? Motion as part of that.
Okay. And there was the motion and second? Or we waiting
I
on-
move for approval.
Okay. Second? Question mark?
Second.
Okay. Now let's do the roll call.
Martin,
Yes.
Weirin,
Yes.
Cahill,
Yes.
Goudy,
Yes.
Hoop,
Yes.
Isom,
Yes.
Lamer.
Yes.
Carried. Thank you. That should take us to item J if I'm keeping track. And the first ordinance, would you read that, Madam Clerk?
This is the first reading of ordinance adopting the National Fire Protection Association 2017 National Electric Code as the City of Marshalltown's electrical code.
And
By
as,
reference.
I'm sorry. And as I understand it, that's for the 2017 code, is that right?
Yes.
Thank you.
I move for approval.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Weirin,
Yes.
Cahill,
Yes.
Goudy,
Yes.
Hoop,
Yes.
Isom,
Yes.
Lamer,
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Carried. Very good. I think that takes us to the item K discussion, and the first topic of which is sidewalk replacement cost sharing programs.
Yes, one of the items that we talked about sort of in our larger schedule of how things will come forward with sidewalks was looking at whether or not you wanted to do anything related to cost sharing on any ordered replacements of existing sidewalks. And so I did do some searching with other cities, and the first thing I will say is that the cities that I mentioned in my memo are certainly the exception and not the rule for cost sharing. However, I did want to give you an idea of what some are doing. Like I said, there are many cities that are doing nothing, and if your sidewalk is ordered to be abated or to be replaced, then the property owner is 100% responsible. However, sometimes it's easier to gain compliance when there is an incentive on the end of it as well. So this is really just determining if you did want to move forward with any type of cost sharing program, that ultimately at our next meeting we would be able to bring back some idea on what we think that might cost or what would be available in an annual budget. All of this is moving towards a proactive assessment of different areas of town on different time periods to ensure that we do have sidewalks that are in a good state of repair and that are free of defect and trip hazards.
Any discussion or other comment?
Can you talk about the permit fees a little bit and just, I can kind of guess pros and cons to having a permit required, but maybe you can talk about that and what other cities have done. Changing that.
Generally, a permit is something we require because with a fee, because we do have a staff person that's going to go out and make an inspection. And so the minimal amount there is to try to cover our costs associated with it. But I would have to say that $22 for a fee is probably not coming very close to covering our costs for doing the inspection. So we have that. If excavation is required, there's an additional $17. So in total, somebody could be looking at almost $40 to put in a new sidewalk. This is a common fee that many places have, just because, as I said, there's generally a city inspection that goes along with it to ensure that the sidewalks have been installed to code and are compliant. That's also of a benefit to the homeowner as well, ensuring that the work that they've paid for is done properly.
I have another question with regards to whether it be the homeowner paying 100% or a different compensation, whether it be a 50-50 split. To what extent does the city have with regards to the development of that sidewalk, whether it be a city designated contractor versus a property owner?
There are many ways to do that, and so there are some cities that had the option where the city was basically having a contractor that was basically sort of the contracted sidewalk person that would then be the entity that was referred all work if there was some sort of cost-sharing program. There are others who it was purely a reimbursement basis that you as an individual homeowner are responsible for figuring out who would be replacing that sidewalk for you. But once you have that bill, then you could submit it for whatever was to be reimbursed. So there are very different ways to do that. I can tell you that one of the conversations that City Engineer, Public Works Director Justin Nickel and I did have was that we still have some sidewalk work that we'll probably be doing again in the downtown area near some of our parking lots this year. It probably would be possible to, whatever contractor we were to hire for that, to also at the same time put out a time and materials bid to do whatever work. Ultimately, if we put out a sidewalk abatement order, replacement order, and you don't follow through with it, we would then be following through with the replacement of it and then assessing it to property taxes. So there would still be a need for us to have access to a contractor who could complete that work.
And I guess just to clarify my question then too, as far as continuity, so if I wanted to do a red sidewalk instead of a white sidewalk, for example, is there strict guidelines within our city that sit there and say if the property owners doing that to limit them on what they can put in for a sidewalk?
I don't know that we have any color preferences, but we can certainly get that. I don't think that's something, as long as it is like Portland concrete, 4 inches thick. I mean, there are specific standards, but I don't believe color is one of those.
I just use that as an example as far as a uniform look for a sidewalk, if we're going to try to put a sidewalk in place throughout the entire city. So
I have a question for Mr. Nickel that pertains to future or current. That if we come up with this new 5-foot rule because it's ADA, and you were saying down in Overland Park, you got fined for not having 5-foot sidewalks?
No, I'd have to get you the particulars of that situation, Councilmember Hoop, but it was the city of Kansas City, Kansas that was fined. And my general engineering community discussion, understanding of the problem was that Kansas City, Kansas really just kind of thumbed their nose at the Department of Justice and didn't make any attempts to meet anything. It wasn't specifically because they didn't have a width or hadn't followed one particular rule. It was more that they took the stance of, we don't have any funds to make these improvements based on your mandate, and as such, we're not going to make improvements.
So if the ADA says 5 foot, would every sidewalk in town have to be 5 foot, or we would get fined?
No, we could get you a document on that, but the ADA sets the minimum width at 3 feet for a sidewalk, and recommends a 4 or 5 foot sidewalk. But then they specify that if you have less than a 5 foot width sidewalk, that every 250 feet, you must provide a passing lane, essentially, that you'd have to make a wider section of sidewalk for 15 or 20 feet to allow two, wheelchairs or something to that effect to pass each other without having to venture off the paved way.
Okay. Thank you.
While you're up, do we still set the grades for them?
No, we do not.
Okay.
And
We check them?
Yes, we do check them. May not be the point, but that was something I was thinking of with Councilmember Hoop and Councilmember Gowdy asked if we could provide the design. We probably should have a discussion about the staff and our availability and the limitations of what our services are at some point, even when we are full staffed.
Okay. But we let the contractor go ahead and set the grade, and then we just double check to make sure.
Correct. That's the count.
Before he pours it?
Yes. Provided that he allows us to inspect it.
Understand.
We do have that happen on occasion.
Understand. Thank you.
Any other questions of Justin? Any other?
Your Honor,
yes.
Not a question of Justin. I'd just like to have him think about some input. Friend and city volunteer John Boston has been on the Planning and Zoning Commission for at least 40 years. He has cited the continuing need for sidewalk replacement, sidewalk gaps, handicap access, and so on. I've come away with a conversation with him that we need to do something. We need to move forward. I'm not expert or have a real feel for any cost sharing, although I think it would be in line with what we might want to do, but that we consider doing a portion or whatever each year. Make it a regular part of our construction, our commitment to public safety, or our replacement. So I stand with him. We need to do something, and we need to do it on a regular basis. If we have new homes, sidewalks should be established then. As far as sidewalk deferments, that's almost become an individual plea agreement with the city, as far as I'm concerned, but that needs to be looked at. But I think we need to have the specs, comply with ADA. I'm not real enamored about the passing lane. I think that's going overboard, but I don't want to be fined either. And we are behind on that aspect of our city improvement as well. Any reaction to?
Just give me the money, right?
I would agree that we do need to finally get over the hurdle and move forward with things on sidewalk. It is always going to be a politically debated subject, but we do need to find a way to try and pick the low-hanging fruit and move forward.
Your Honor, as far as the assessment process goes, when we do an assessment, we're required to have an assessment schedule in advance. The council has the authority to pick how many years the improvement would be extended through, or the assessment value. So you could go up to 10 years for the assessment principal payback. And state law limits the interest rate at 9% currently, but I believe the council could probably adjust that interest rate. So if you're wanting to make a concession for low-income individuals that may not be able to afford the full price and 1-year payment, assessments could be an affordable.
So this was a little bit different than an assessment project. This would just be with any nuisance, the same process for a nuisance. So assessing basically meaning that if the bill was not paid by a certain amount of time, we would move to put that onto the property taxes as a special assessment versus trying to design an assessment project. And so that's, as we're talking about the existing sidewalks, there is a distinguishment there, but as we start talking about the gaps and what we want to do with that, that's certainly one of the options for funding that would be brought back to you at that point.
Yeah, the council's in a nuisance situation, we can still go for a multi-year assessment, doesn't have to be a single year.
Right. Your Honor, one last question. The length, the distance you have to have before you put the runarounds for the wheelchairs. What if the property owner only has 60 feet?
That's an interesting wrinkle that would figure into that. Whose property do you assess to put the passing lane on? It all figures into the conundrum.
I thought about that, and I thought there's a lot of lots that don't even have 100 feet. That's it. Sorry. Thanks.
You bet. Any other discussion about sidewalks?
I guess what I still don't know is what would you like to do here? As we move to proactively start assessing different areas of town for existing sidewalks, do you want to move forward with reviewing further any sort of cost-sharing program, or make it all the property owner's responsibility to do those replacements?
It's pretty hard when we've spent all this time making the property owner do it all, that all at once we start paying for the ones that have done it all themselves. You know, I don't know, it feels kind of uncomfortable for me to say to property owner A, since you didn't do yours when you were supposed to, we'll now pay for half of it when your neighbor paid for all of it.
It rewards procrastination. Yeah.
I agree.
So I'd like a little more time to think about it. I'm not ready to say, yes, I want to move in a certain direction, except I'm with Mr. Lamer on that one, not saying we'll take it all on ourselves.
So to give you an idea of where we're talking about with existing sidewalks, we mentioned that this would be probably mostly a volunteer-led effort. So there is a bigger timetable. Looking at probably, it would be nice if our first round of letters went out in early June. Knowing that, you know, here it seems like we're almost halfway through April, but early June, you would then be able to give the months of June, July, August, September, October, and then basically have a deadline date at the end of November, and give plenty of time for a sidewalk to be completed. So we certainly don't want to miss out on this as being a year where there is a construction season where we could start some of these ordered sidewalk replacements. But we will have more sidewalk discussion on May 14th, so we can certainly put this item back on there on May 14th to give you another chance to discuss.
It's about April 23rd.
Can you give us a list of the first, what you would consider to be the first round? Is it just around schools? It just, you know, give us that list so we have something to, so we just not everybody in town, so we know who we're dealing with.
Right. Ideally, the easiest way to do it is to draw things into quadrants, but I think we've recognized that schools are most important. That's the most important on the gap side of things as well. Okay. And so that's where we're going to be focusing on the gap side. So I would say that this first year, the 2018 season, would be focusing on schools, and then probably in the next year we'd switch to quadrants.
Would you just give us a map that shows us where you want to do them?
Certainly. Mm-hmm.
I agree with Mr. Lamer, because, you know, although you say those who procrastinate could be rewarded for their procrastination, I would like to see the concentration of where those sidewalks are needed, whether it's repair. And I'm thinking mainly repair, because if we look and it's concentrated in one area that is maybe a lower socioeconomic area than other areas who have completed the project, I think it's not a problem of procrastination, but a problem of actually having funds to do it. And so I think we have a different issue that we have to address than just people didn't do it when they were first told to. So I would also like to see where the concentration of those letters may go out, so that we can make a better judgment on whether we should do any cost sharing or not.
The previous committee prior to this had a very good program laid out, and I'm sure it's still in effect, because we only did 1 year of it instead of 5. So that program would still be laying there with the same gaps and the same minus whatever.
And so that's the gaps. The gaps are going to be something that we talk about completely separately from existing sidewalks, because they're really, even though it's under the umbrella of sidewalks, there's two separate things happening there. And so this right now is focusing just on the existing sidewalks, and I believe it is in early June that we'll be coming back to you with information on gaps. There is currently an informational form that you can fill out online to provide that information, and we have gotten some feedback on some gaps that were not identified back in 2007. So, but my understanding is that the city has never had a proactive program that has gone out and assessed current sidewalk condition in any of our neighborhoods.
As the city probably know, but as a committee of the city, there was.
Yes.
That's right.
And I think that was the year that we got all the back-to-school funds. Wasn't there there was something having to do with back to school or something, and we got
routes to school.
And we got to do a whole bunch of sidewalks that year free of charge, and Uncle Sam picked up the whole bill. But once that federal money ran out, they didn't do anything after that. But I agree, they surveyed the whole town.
Right.
I think the planning and zoning bunch did it.
And so my understanding, and Michelle can speak to this because she was part of that sidewalk task force, was that was not doing an existing condition, but looking at where are those gaps and putting in new sidewalks.
That's true.
Right.
That's true.
Right.
So
That's true.
We're talking about something completely different with existing sidewalk condition assessment.
So you're talking about where the brick sidewalks are now, and
Right, or, heave things, trip hazards, things that have overgrown or cracked, broken.
Okay.
Yeah, the work that was done was definitely focused more on those gaps, which of course led to, like you said, the safe routes to school and filling those gaps around our schools. And so looking at condition pieces was not something that we heavily focused on. Recognize, of course, it's an issue, but.
okay, thank you.
Have you got enough direction on sidewalks?
Yes, we'll identify sort of those areas around schools, and then bring back a map to the April 23rd meeting to give you a better idea of where we would be looking at.
Very good. Let's go on to the police and fire building cost update.
Diana Steiner, Finance Director. Just want to bring your attention to a couple things. The last report I gave you was in February, so 2 months have gone by, and so our interest on our investments has been increasing for our revenues. It's now $54,000. Find the mouse.
I have the mouse, I'm
okay,
sorry.
that's fine. Go ahead. So interest rates have been rising. So our latest CDs, we've been getting 1.9 to 2%, which is a whole percentage point higher than this time last year. So that's good for us. Our expenses paid to date, our payments down at the bottom, $4.3 million. That's about $750,000 higher than it was when I brought the report in February. Again, we still have about $1 million that's not spent or committed. Any questions?
Just one. I don't know how to word it. They passed a rule that we couldn't sell bonds and make money off of them over the interest rate.
Right.
But when we're receiving interest and we're drawing the balance down, that shouldn't be a problem, should it?
They look at the yield rate, which is called an arbitrage calculation. So you can't earn more interest than what you would be paying in the bond. We're not there yet.
Good enough.
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Last item is first quarter strategic plan update.
Yes, I'll keep this pretty brief and not go through item by item, but just hit the high points from my memo. Goal 1 is our housing goal, and probably the largest thing that happened here with that in the first quarter was the completion and presentation of the housing study by Marshall Economic Development. And so from here, there's a lot of different little things moving forward in terms of strategies. And then the city part of that is really our neighborhood revitalization program, which is mostly grant funded here for this calendar year, really got kicked off, and there is a lot happening that Joyce Brown is working on, including reviving the community garden, identifying neighborhoods where some impact would be best to occur related to some neighborhood improvements, which could include some sidewalks as we move forward and have that discussion, and then looking at how we bring people together. And one interesting item which just happened was a presentation and information session on contract sales to a buyer and a seller. And so there was not great attendance, but hopefully we'll be able to do that again. Our second goal is related to our image. There's 4 planned property demolitions for this spring as part of our dangerous and dilapidated program. And throughout the winter, our code enforcement inspector has had a busy season of cleanups. And so there's probably a lot more of that to happen here in the near future. We're still trying to work out some fine details on our website and really enhance that sort of online presence for the city. And we continue to work on that here to make sure that we're making things as easy as possible for staff while putting out the best information possible to the community. Goal 3 is to enhance our organization, and it is certainly our biggest goal, and it's one that's never changing. And so besides completing the budget process, we have a number of policies and things that are under review, like the sidewalk ordinance, but then probably the biggest item was the recodification process. Vendor has been selected, and we are moving forward with that. We also have Goal 4, which deals with partnerships, and there are many, many entities that we continue to partner with. The one that you most recently had a presentation about was from Iowa State, and the partnership related to reviewing our transit system and helping us get data to then make decisions on that system. And so we continue to work with the Central Business District, Trails, Vision Marshalltown, MED, MRP, and many others, including tonight the school district, to continue to support the community.
Thank you. Mr. Martin.
Just a question and maybe some input, Jessica, on number 3, when we talk about enhancing the organization and the review of policies, procedures, and so on. I would like to have us and the council in particular be included in the 28 agreements and a review for the purpose of updating, making certain that they're relevant to our needs and that the outcomes are what we desire. With that in mind.
Got a quick question over here. The money we realized from the sale of that property on North Center, that money would go into the demolition fund?
Yes, that would be correct. We've now got that on its own fund, and so that would be where, after all costs are paid, that would go.
Jessica, where's the housing study? I haven't seen that. Is it on do we have it up online?
It is actually, it's on the MED's website, and so I will make sure I'll put that on my to-do list to forward that link out to all of you.
Okay.
The executive summary is, I think, about 30-some pages, 40-some pages. The entire study is a really big document, but we can probably print out the executive summary, which is going to have a lot of that information for all of you if you'd like.
Okay, yeah, I'd like to see it.
Anything else about the strategic plan update? Okay, I think we've come to the time for public comment.
I just had one, Your Honor. We need to figure out what students we can bring next week or next time we meet, because I really love having them here. It's such a great way to start the meeting. So it's really great to see what young people are doing.
And that Lego demonstration was absolutely just knock your socks off fascinating. It really was. Yeah, good idea. And so I solicit the counselors in public, if you have students that you'd like to feed, we've had the golf team that was so successful. That was fun too. Let's keep that parade going.
Justin Nickel, Public Works Director. As my most frequently asked question, when will the bridge be open?
Yeah.
I I would be remiss if I didn't mention it. The weather is certainly not helping us in that effort this week. I am hopeful that the forecast holds true and that we can have 50 and 60 and possibly even 70-degree temperatures. And I will say that at this point, I hope the bridge will be open by the end of this work week. It's possible that it could be sooner, but I think realistic expectations would be the end of the work week.
Thanks,
Any other
Justin.
questions?
Thank you.
Seeing no one else approaching the microphone, let's declare the meeting adjourned at 7:55 p.m.